Hey everyone, my name's Lily and I'm the book blogger behind Utopia State of Mind, and this is my September wrap-up, which today is over halfway through October. So that kind of tells you how September is going, or how September went. Oh boy, how October is going as well. This tells you kind of how October is going as well. But I talked a little bit about September, or my thoughts, I guess, about how September was going to be at the end of my August wrap up. I will put the link below. To say that I was pretty apprehensive about how September would go, and that I was having a lot of trouble. And September was a lot of trouble. Also, please excuse the yard work that you will be able to hear in the background probably throughout the course of this video. I was already really late and I knew I kind of had to film this, so here we go. So September was really hard. It was really exhausting mentally, and kind of I had to really rethink how I felt kind of about reading as a whole and about my commitments. I'm not there yet. I am not there yet. I'm still going through that process, mostly because for me it feels like September has not ended yet, when that is very much not the case. September has ended. So that's also kind of, indicative of my mental state. But September was really difficult. I went on like a mental health hiatus vacation in September to try to help clear my head a little bit, get a little bit of distance. It didn't work. It was not one of those things where I was like, oh yeah, laying on the beach, like feeling so great. It was not like that. I had a lot to kind of unpack, and I didn't really succeed, and it ended up being very stressful because of that. So, this is going to be something that's going to continue on throughout the rest of the year. Certainly in October, I've been dealing with the same things. October's also been really hard. Like, I think that 2022 is going to end on a kind of more difficult mental, like, period, I guess, if that's any help. I realize it's not any help, actually. But yeah, as I've said in a few other things, like if you want me to do a dedicated video about that and kind of looking back on the last 6 years of book blogging and how my relationship to reading and how my relationship to kind of different aspects have changed, please let me know, because I feel like without literally writing the notes for that video, I won't really figure out how better to describe or explain myself to you in the video for these kind of mini personal update wrap-ups. So anyway, we'll go on to books. In September, I read 22 books, which is a lot less for me. I know for a lot of people still that's a lot of books. Reading is super relative. But for me, it was a month where I read less, but the weight of the books I didn't read was so present and heavy on my shoulders that it didn't feel like I was giving myself a break, if that makes any sense. Of the 22 books that I read, 36% of those featured characters of color as main characters, and 41% of those featured queer characters, queer main characters. I feel like this is one of the first, or I guess August as well. I'm looking at my notes from the last months. Normally, I feel like the characters of color is always higher than queer books, so I actually am really pleased that September has more queer books. And also, as I look at my notebook, I see that August also had more queer books, so love that trend for me. I didn't have that many favorites, mostly because I was not feeling it, honestly. But of my favorites, I really enjoyed For the Road, which was a book about grief. It's a YA contemporary. It was a book about grief, and a book that really navigates and explores revenge and forgiveness and moving on and being stuck in the past, like all of those different things. I think definitely check out the trigger warnings because it is very deeply emotional, but what I really appreciate about For the Road is that it also is very grounded in character work and character dynamics. I also read Out of the Blue, which I loved. I want more mermaid books, like all of your mermaid book recommendations below, because I need to read them all. Out of the Blue was so fantastic in the way that it balanced a really beautiful, fantastical side to this contemporary. The dual perspective characters just like melted my heart. This was one of those books which was emotional on every front. It was emotional on the character front, but also on the action / story front. I don't want to go into spoilers, so I can't exactly tell you why. But emotional in all of these different aspects, and it was just such a joy to read. I felt so happy reading it, even though there were really intense, kind of angsty tension stuff. I was still really excited to read it, and I ended feeling really happy about it. The next one is Rest in the Root, which I loved. I really loved Justina Ireland's like world building concepts with Dread Nation and The Deathless Divide, and Rest in the Root is no exception. I loved this idea of magic. It has necromancy, but it also has other types of magic, so stonework, plant work. Like, it has a lot of different magic types that I really enjoyed, and I loved how in Rest in the Root there are kind of periods of transcripts from in the present, and it's kind of like looking at the past, and this time juxtaposition felt really great for establishing not only tension but this idea of unreliability, perhaps, in narrators and stories and truths, whatever that means. But Rest in the Root was fabulous because of the action. 100%, I loved it. I could not stop reading it. And yeah, I just loved the world building kernel as well. I read like so many different books as well. I felt that the historical fiction world building combination was fantastic, and the way that it was really integrated into the past historical fiction, like the past even for this setting of historical fiction. And finally, I loved Silver Under Nightfall. I had high expectations for this, but like if you love Witcher, Silver Under Nightfall gave me those vibes with vampires. It's queer, it's adult fantasy. It is just so fun, while also being intensely emotional, because the main character, Remy, is going through a lot. He feels like an outsider. He doesn't really have a good sense of home. He's looking for a found family. These are all things I love in a book. And so emotionally and from a character development, it also has these really deep explorations of those themes, while also having vampire, monster, action, plot, adventure, all of those different things. So together, those kind of cement this pull to finish reading it, and I just really loved it. Like, all of these books were something where I was excited to keep reading to kind of figure out what was going to happen. And so yeah, those are my favorite books. I know that this is kind of a shorter wrap-up, mostly because it's late. I would have preferred to wait until they were done yard working. It's late. I just need to get this out. There have been delays. I'm just trying to get out the videos to you, and to realize that I'm very late. So it had to happen. So apologies as well for the noise in the background. I don't have high hopes for October's wrap-up. I have a little bit more high hopes for November wrap-up, to kind of hope that I can get a better handle. I'm very behind, so I hope that in the rest of October I can get a better handle on getting caught up for November and a little bit ahead for January, because I don't have that many for December. So I hope you have a really great reading day, week, month, or year, and I will see you in the next video whenever that is. Sorry.